Hey team, welcome back. So welcome to the section in which we're going to start working on the backlog and on the project tasks. So I took some time to decide whether or not I wanted to do the security piece with the JSON Web Token first. But then I realized that testing the backend with once the JSON Web Token is in place is a little slow, because then you have to keep logging in, and there's a lot of testing involved in the backlog piece of this project. So I'm going to save the securing of the application for the very last two sections. So basically we're going to have this section in which we're going to only work on the backend, and then we're going to have the section that's going to follow this one is going to be when we actually work on React, and then we go back to the backend again to secure the backend, and then we go back to React and secure the front end, and then after that it should just be a matter of deploying. Okay, so we are making good progress now. Heads up, I'm gonna start moving a little faster because the last two sections I moved a little slow on purpose, just because I wanted you guys to get the hang of it, for you guys to take baby steps towards everything. But I think now we can move a little faster. Okay, so here we're going to start working on the domains, and we're going to create two classes. We're going to create the backlog class. Yes. And then we're going to create the project task class. Okay. And there's a reason why I'm doing this way, and I promise you it's going to become clearer, because I know that some of you that already have some experience with Spring are questioning, why do I have this element here when I can just have a list of project tasks within the project? It's all about API calls, and I promise you we're gonna have a lot of fun with them and actually optimizing them. There are really important considerations here, and this is the reason why I'm starting here. Okay, so let's start wiring up our backlog object. So as always, we're going to give this one an entity annotation, and then we're going to start working on the attributes for the backlog. The first attribute, as always, is the database ID. So we're going to use add ID annotation and also add generated value with a strategy of generation type identity. Okay, and this is going to be a private long ID. Perfect. Then the next one is going to be private integer. Please choose integer here, and it's going to be called PT sequence. And what this is going to be is basically the sequence of project tasks within each backlog. And when we start working on the relationship, the entity relationship between these three classes, this is going to be clearer. Okay, for now just trust me and initialize it to 0. Okay, this is very important. Then we're going to do the private string project identifier. Okay, and you're already familiar with this one. It's literally going to share it is literally going to share the same identifier as a project. Okay, and this is going to make things a lot easier as we move forward. Okay, and in the future we're going to have one-to-one with the project, and all this means is that each project has one backlog, and a backlog only belongs to that project, to a specific project. Okay, and then we're going to have a one-to-many with the project tasks. And basically what this means, or it translates to, is that a backlog could have one or more project tasks, but a project task, at least in the scope of this project, can only belong to one backlog. Okay, there are advanced tools like Jira where you can have a project task in two backlogs, but anyway, I'm not going to get into that. We're just doing a one-to-many here. Okay, and we don't need the created add or the updated add, because to be honest, this entity right here, we're literally just using it to decouple the project task list from the project. That way we just call the backlog object that's going to contain the project tasks. And this is going to make our loading of the project object more efficient when we only need to load the project information and not everything that's associated with it. Okay, this is the main reason why I'm decoupling it this way. All right, then we're going to do a no argument constructor here. And then last but not least, we're going to do our getters and setters. All right. And let me see if I need anything else. I don't think so. I think we're all good with the backlog object. Okay, now let's start working on the project task. Again, add entity, and we need the ID. Okay. Okay. So now the attributes for the project task. We are going to do private string project sequence. And if you remember the demo, what this is going to do is that it's going to add this plus this, and it's going to have a counter, and basically it's just going to keep its own count specific to each project and specific to each backlog. So that means that if you have project task with a DB ID, with a database ID at 1383, which is a super random number, but it's the first task in that project, it's still going to be the project identifier plus 1, and it's just going to say project test 1, and that's going to be the project sequence. All right, then I am going to start assigning, by the way, some constraints. That way we can actually move a little faster too. All right. So in the project sequence, this one, a column cannot be updated. Okay, updatable, false. It cannot be duplicate, but this one we're gonna generate automatically. So there's no way for the user to actually monkey with this one anyway. So all we want to do is make sure that we cannot update it. All right. Because remember, we're gonna use this. Remember, no, because we haven't done it. Keep in mind that we're gonna use this to search individual project tasks. Then the next thing is going to be the private string summary, and it's just going to be like the header of the project task. If you remember from the demo, that's the only attribute that has a constraint here, and it's basically please include a project summary. Cool. Next one is private string acceptance criteria. So you can write some information as to what it is that you want to accomplish and how you want to test it. Then the private string status, the status of your application, we need that so that we can traverse through the board. Then private integer priority, so that we can group tasks based on their priorities. If they're high priority, they're going to be grouped at the top. If they're medium, they're going to be grouped in the middle. And if they're low, well, you know where this is going, right? Private date, due date. And then private date created at and updated at. All I'm doing with these is that we can access them if we wanted to, and I want to, and also I've been wanting also to show you that we can, if we wanted to log, if we want at some point to put the history of the task, then you can actually trace when it was created and who updated it and when it was updated. That's all. That's the only reason why I'm using this, although we are not showing it on the screen, but I think it's a good thing to have. So protected, void, uncreate, And I'm sure you remember this. So this is basically telling it that every time you persist a project task object, then make sure that you assign the disk created at to a new date, which is going to be pretty much the date in which it's being created. Okay, nothing out of the ordinary here, nothing that we haven't done before, and then obviously the pre-update as well. Perfect. Okay, so with that in mind, let me just do a double check that I actually have all of my all of the attributes that I want here, and actually I don't have all of the attributes that I want here. First of all, I just want to comment here, because we're not setting that up just yet, that we're gonna have a many to one with the backlog, which is for the same reason that it's the same logic that I explained before. A task can only belong to one backlog, but you can have many tasks in one backlog. Okay, and then the other one is a private string project identifier. Again, because I do want to store this here so that when we are persisting tasks, we also pass this in the URL, so that we know that we're persisting that task onto that specific backlog. Okay, and once we start wiring this up, it's going to make more sense. But for now, just take my word for it. Okay. Now let's now that we have this, let me see if there are any other constraints. Yes, there's one more constraint, which is column and the updatable false. The project identifier cannot be updated. All right, that's also pretty static. Unless you want to add additional logic, then that's up to you. The project that I'm building, it is not updatable. Again, no arguments constructor here. I just like doing it that way. Trust me, I've seen issues, obviously, with later versions of Spring and SpringBoot, where I've gotten some weird issues that were resolved when I put the no argument constructor. So ever since, I just do it anyway, like mindlessly, like seriously. So just do it, won't hurt anything. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. So you might as well do it. All right, so we have our project task here, and the last thing I want to do is I just want to override the toString method, just in case we have to do some troubleshooting. We don't just get the reference ID for the memory location, that we actually can access the object in its entirety. All right. So with this in place, I think we're good for time. So I'm just gonna do a few more things. Why don't we do the repositories for both the backlog and the project task? So I'm going to do that too. Remember, this is an interface, and it's going to be called backlog repository. Cool. And the backlog repository takes the annotation at repository, and it extends the CRUD repository, and it takes a backlog object and along as an ID. Perfect. And same thing for the project task repo. Also remember, an interface. Okay. And then it extends to the CRUD repository. It takes a project task and along here. All right, this is looking really well. So what I'm gonna do now is just start my server and make sure that I can see the tables. That's all I want. That's all I really want to see right now. And there you have it. If we run a query here, we have exactly the attributes that we defined, and then for the project task, so we need to get backlog out of here. Same thing. So it's all looking good. I'm just gonna do one. I don't know why I feel that I'm forgetting something on the project task, and I don't want to be doing offline updates, because that's not cool to you guys. That's just not okay, because it's usually something that then you guys are gonna miss somehow. Okay, I think I'm all good. You know, if I forgot anything, you guys are gonna have to forgive me and bear with me. Okay, thank you very much. See you in the next lecture.